Hello and welcome to another episode of Note to Self. In this OIC Basics episode, we'll take a look at variables, properties and schedule parameters and their use in OIC integrations. As developers, we make use of variables in our integration flows, sometimes to set static values, but mostly to set values on the fly at runtime. Hard-coded values in our integration flows is never a good idea. It makes our integrations very inflexible. In this video, we'll take a look at some methods of setting, passing and updating parameters or variable values in our integrations. The first and most obvious one is lookups. Mostly we think of lookups as lists of values, which help us transform data from one domain value to another. However, to me, they are also clearly the most flexible methods of holding variables that you can maintain externally to integrations. And the best part is that you could use them for many purposes, such as UCM or Web Center account locations, file name patterns, target file server directory endpoints, email addresses, and so on. Essentially, any environment variable that you could potentially change could be a candidate for managing it in a lookup. Although lookups are flexible, their values are often cached, so therefore you may need to reactivate any integrations that use that lookup before the updated values take effect. If you wanted to create an environment-specific lookup, you could use the value of the service instance name from the environment details metadata as a source value. This low maintenance approach means you could manage all your lookup values for all your OIC instances very easily. In this example, we've set a variable by using the service instance name to derive a value from the lookup. Next, we'll take a look at integration properties. Integration properties are variables that you can set outside of the integration and can be updated and used immediately in active integrations. They are very useful when you want to set semi-permanent values. In this example, we're using an integration property called IP months to hold a variable value for use inside of a function within our integration. Integration properties are set up on the start action of your integration and are available in both scheduled and app-driven orchestrations. You need to set a default value for the integration property, but as we saw, you can update them manually from the OIC console, even when the integration is active. Here's an example mapper, and where the integration properties are located under the source objects. The final variable we'll take a look at are schedule parameters. These, as the name suggests, are only available in scheduled orchestration integration types, but they are certainly the most flexible. Schedule parameters are configured by hitting the pencil icon on the schedule start action. Again, you'll need to set some default values. In a similar way to integration properties, you can update them manually within the OIC console at runtime to set or override the existing values. However, unlike integration properties, schedule parameters can be updated within the runtime flow, or even externally using a REST service. We'll cover that later. The values for schedule parameters can also be used as tracking fields, which is extremely handy for finding instances at runtime. Another thing to know about schedule parameters is that you have the ability to update them. This is a great feature. Imagine an integration that performs a date with timestamp query. Perhaps to look for new files on a server or records in a database. If the API or query needs a date from and date to value, then perhaps you could use schedule parameters. You can use schedule parameters to create a contiguous chain of dates, using the to date in run 1 to become the from date in run 2, and so on. Perhaps another use case would be to hold a value like a sequence in the schedule parameter. Again, hold, use and then update that sequence from one run to another. The values for schedule parameters can be set manually by running the schedule from the OIC console. Depending on your requirement, you can keep the current value or set a new one. In this example run, we'll change the value for the change this schedule parameter to a new value. As I've used it as the primary tracking field, the value for change this, as you can see, has been changed in this run. We can also use the seeded REST API to submit a scheduled integration request and pass the values in the payload to update any of the scheduled parameters in the following run. It's worth emphasising that this often overlooked feature of OIC, that scheduled orchestrations can be executed as REST services and therefore could also be executed within OIC integrations where required. You can have up to 5 scheduled parameters that can be exposed and changed on execution at runtime. Let's summarise the main features of scheduled parameters. These variables can be manually set in OIC console when making a manual submission. You can update them on the fly for the next run within an integration, or change them via an API when submitting the job. In terms of naming conventions, I like using VAR prefixes for ordinary variables, IP for integration properties, and SP for schedule parameters, as this helps me find the variables I need in the mapper easily. I hope that this short tour into variables, properties and schedule parameters and how and where to use them in your integrations has been valuable. And until next time, goodbye.